Over the past 24 hours, Thomas has been on an information campaign, sharing so much information with us, the community, that it has been a little bit overwhelming, but also very exciting. Now, there's also a tinge of disappointment because it is looking like patch number 1, as what Thomas is referring to it as, is not going to actually be the multiplayer milestone update. However, that is still being worked on and still being tested. If that changes, I'll be sure to give you guys the full detail. But what we're talking about here today is Thomas is sharing a huge sneak peek about the Breach patch number 1. This is not hotfix number 4, and literally hotfix number 4 might be out by the time I finish making this video, so keep it locked to the channel for all the news and all the information, as well as guides and so much more. Guys, this game is incredible, and I'm giving away copies of the game to help support the devs, to help grow this game's community, and you guys have been responding so beautifully here at 1.3K, over 1,300 of you, if I could do math in this case, are new around here. Welcome in, so glad to have you, especially with Ianus and with Shadow Morgan. Thank you guys for sounding off in the comments, letting me know that you're new around here. We got a lot to break down. Like I said, we're going to be doing most of this as a focus in on what is changing. That means that some of you are going to have some concerns about some of the things that Thomas shares. We're going to talk about them, and after that, after we go through everything that Thomas has for us today, we're going to dive into some of the response from the community, positive and negative, have a light little discussion, and as always, end on our message of hope. I think today's an important one, especially for the fellas out there that are really battling depression or battling some kind of physical ailment. I want to talk to you guys about my experience and hopefully give you guys a little bit of hope. But all that being said, let's dive into why you clicked on the video in the first place. There's a couple of things I want to touch on before we get into the massive amount of information. Aliu writes, give us classes already, some flavor of rune skill choices from the particular class. Give me Paladin already, please. And Thomas replies, they're already working on it, showing off the hammers, in which that you can kind of see that they're actually listing it out with the class name in mind and various different weapons. Now, this is going to be exciting. It'll be fun to see how that plays out. Also going on to say one more thing in terms of kind of his tweet campaign of all the news here. There's going to be farmhouses with farm plots in Sacrament, and they're already introducing some of the mechanics akin to Harvest Moon Stardew Valley, so people will be able to turn their houses into resource machines. So let that kind of stuff, and you can see various different items that would be used obviously in farming. All right, we know that's been coming, but it's interesting to see that it's starting to take even more shape, which I think continues to highlight the velocity has definitely increased within development. And that's what brings us to patch number 1. Thomas writes, hey folks, we're getting close to wrapping up hotfix number 4, and once that's out the door, we're going to slow things down a bit and focus a bit more on substantial changes. Patch number 1 will be the first of those bigger updates. This post is a breakdown of what they're aiming to get into patch number 1. Some of it's polish, some of it's structural stuff, and a lot of it comes directly from the feedback that you've given us since the launch of Breach. I just went over some of the internal discussions we had and used ChatGPT to make a nice list summary. This stuff is still subject to change, but I thought it'd be helpful if everyone would get a first idea of what has been discussed internally. So we've already covered this previously on the channel, but this is really like I wasn't expecting to see maybe realm tiers this soon, but realm tiers, aka difficulty options, this is going to evolve also into custom realms in which that you or I can turn on various different things, and I want to keep that in mind. I want you to keep that in the back of your mind throughout all of this, because a lot of these changes could easily end up as various different customization options, so you or I, the player, can build out insane difficulty realms or realms that have a high farmability. At the end of the day, just keep that in mind, but let's get into it. So for realm tiers, one of the bigger ideas that they've been testing is the introduction of realm tiers, basically a difficulty system. This came out of our internal discussions around how Elden Ring hit a much broader audience than previous Souls games, partly because it was more accessible. We want to give players the ability to pick a tier that feels right for them, and this should make the early game less punishing for new players, while still allowing more experienced folks to crank up the challenge. Now for one of the things that they've talked about and we've covered here adding in basically where you have 8 rune abilities. Well, this is going to be how they do that. So not only do you have your weapon abilities, but they're going to add in native utility runes, which I think is really interesting. So he goes on to say, utility runes aren't used too much by players, even though they're incredibly useful. We see a lot of players complaining about running out of food, not even realizing that there are other ways to heal yourself already implemented. So we wanted to address this in a cool way. This is what we're changing. They're going to have access to a basic heal aura rune by default, and it's going to be bound to right trigger plus X. If you are able to equip up to 4 utility runes at Eleanor that are always available, no matter what weapon you're using. The gesture wheel is going to move to the hold select, and tapping select will still bring up the map. You should clean up this whole utility stick problem and make utility runes a lot more desirable. And for those who don't know, the utility stick, you can have multiple weapon slots, and ultimately what people have been doing is just slotting in the utility runes into just a random weapon that they switch to, use the utility and switch out. This is going to make that, I guess, more meaningful. And it's going to be interesting to see, does this open up even more builds, or do people still use the utility stick, in their whole structure and just have a basic 4 and then the other weapons? Time will tell to see how successful that is. Personally, I'm excited, especially somebody who loves Illuminate in this game. Very helpful spell. I highly recommend it. All right. They're also adding, and this is going to be, we've seen some controversy about this already, free fast travel between whispers. One of the more common requests, let us fast travel between discovered whispers. So that's exactly what we're doing. In patch number 1, you're going to be able to travel freely between all unlocked whispers, not just the last one you touched. I've recently talked about my hesitations about free fast travel and mentioned that it might hurt the Alive system. But since the Alive system doesn't have all the features we ultimately want yet, we'll make this change for now. Also, ultimately, we will allow players to customize their realms so that we create more of a D&D feeling where players can get a ton of replayability out of playing Wicked with different rule sets each time. And I think that's going to be especially cool for co-op. He's mentioning co-op here, but it doesn't, nothing in here says that co-op is a part of patch number 1. It really just depends on when they're going to put this out. So as things evolve, as things kind of become more clear, I'll be sure to get you guys all the latest information. Anyway, continuing on, gem extraction from Eleanor. We're adding in a way to remove gems from weapons. Currently, once a gem is slotted, that's it. It's locked in patch number 1. You'll be able to extract them and try different builds without worrying about ruining a weapon. I'm so thrilled with that fact. It's actually going to be, that's going to be really helpful, especially as I get ready to release my leveling build and guide, because there's just going to be so many really cool options and some things like, hey, do this and then switch it up. All right, ledge protection for rune attacks. We've already added some ledge protection in place for normal melee combos, but rune attacks will still let you fling yourself off cliffs way too easily. This is getting addressed, and rune attacks will no longer ignore ledge safety. They're also tweaking fall damage. The current fall damage formula is pretty punishing. If you drop off something slightly too high, you get chunked hard. We're easing up the curve for smaller falls so they don't hurt so much. You'll still die from extreme falls, so no cheesing, but the in-between stuff will feel fairer. It's gonna be interesting to see. If anybody watched my how my hardcore run came to an end this past week, you know that it's because I got pushed off an edge. I can't wait to see how this changes things. I will be doing another hardcore run, starting a mage build this Saturday. If you want to come hang out, we'll be giving away copies of the game, and I'd love to see you there and hopefully be able to hook you up with a copy if you're still on the fence and you're several minutes into a kind of a patch preview. Yes, show up. Let's get whoever you are. Let me know. Let's see if we can't get you a copy of this game. All right. For ranged gameplay pass, this actually has me really excited, because while I'm always going to be partial to MP for casters, the changes they're reflecting here, I think, are gonna sound. I can't wait to go hands-on with it, because it's been one of my biggest frustrations wrapped around kind of playing a mage in this, but that also applies to the archer, the ranger in this case. A lot of feedback has come in on how ranged build feels punished right now. Having everything cost focused means you're constantly forced to melee just to regenerate. We're going to separate that out. Basic ranged attacks, bows, basic spells, will use stamina instead of focus. We'll tune the damage and attack speed to avoid range builds deleting enemies before they can reach you. The goal is to let ranged feel as a valid playstyle again, and this one is difficult and might not make it, but we're trying to do our best to address the issue. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. I do hope that actually does make patch number 1. I think a lot of players out there would really like that change. You can let me know how you feel about it. Personally, stamina seems to make the most sense. It literally is the concept of MPs, a resource that you have at the start of the fight, and as you use it, it depletes, and you have to rest, take a pause to have that, repeat, refill. In this case. Anyway, also they're working on input delay fixes. Some users recently reported some input delay issues. We're investigating that and we'll fix it. For parry feedback, they have heard that parrying doesn't feel as satisfying as it could, especially when compared to games like Sekiro or Elden Ring. This is mostly a presentation issue, visual effects, sound effects, camera shake. So we'll do a quick polish pass to make parries hit harder and feel better to land. Loot matching the challenge. This is interesting because I've never really thought about it, but once I read this, I was like, oh, yeah, that is annoying. Right now, loot is fully RNG, even some hard to reach shinies. That doesn't feel great. We're making certain shinies as special and giving them a much better loot table. If something was a pain to get to, it should have a better shot at giving you something good. I'm fully in support for that. And who hasn't here risked life and limb to get a couple of copper? I know I have, crazily enough. More weekly bounty and challenges are on the way. There are currently not enough weekly quests. Once you finish them, that's it until the reset. We're going to add more weekly bounties and challenges to fill the gap and give players more goals to chase between major content drops. They're also adding in missing tutorials. A lot of the tutorials didn't make it into the Breach update. We're adding those in for patch number 1 so that the key systems are explained properly. This won't solve everything, but it'll be a start, and more comprehensive onboarding is still something that they're going to look into separately. They're adding a better grinding flow. There's been a lot of feedback that farming resources feels grindy compared to how often you're actually fighting things. We're looking into a few things here. One, rebalancing drop rates and crafting costs, possibly adding a little interactive mechanics, think Paper Mario style timing events, to make farming a bit more active and fun. And I haven't played the Paper Mario, so I don't know essentially Paper Mario styling events. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what that means if you feel like it. But from my mind, I immediately go like, we've seen interviews, we've seen the questions asked. It'd be kind of interesting to be able to feed like a whisper, like an item if you're like, hey, I want to go hunt something, or like hunts, I guess would be kind of something where just systems and gameplay mechanics, because one of the things, and this is kind of we're gonna skip over one thing, we'll come back to it in a second. Jumping to cleaning up the realm cheesing. That's how I got all my Plague Ichor. That system still works. That's going to be a part of my guide that's upcoming. People are still creating fresh realms just to reform items that they couldn't find on their main one. This tells us that they need to make more loot drops more predictable and make it obvious where to find what. You need gems to do this, you need Plague Ichor, you need that, etc. Every major activity in the game should have a solid farming path or something specific. This also kind of ties back into the thing I skipped over, more side content post Sacrament. Right now, when players hit Sacrament, the only next step is Nameless Pass, which is a pretty steep level jump if you're coming in early. We want to add something in between, some kind of special option, and optional content that helps players level up a bit without just sending them back to old zones. They're also adding in carpets, chest carpets, and naming of the chests for just a small quality of life thing, useful for decorators. We're adding in small carpets that you can place under your chest with icons that will help you remember what each chest is for. Stretch goal, allow naming of chests so you don't have to memorize your own layout. I think that's going to be great to see. In terms of final notes, Thomas wraps up, says patch number 1 is shaping up to be a pretty big one. That is what is in here, it came directly from player feedback. So thank you for continuing to share your thoughts and frustrations. We're listening, and we're excited to keep pushing the game forward with you. Let us know what you're most looking forward to, and we will keep you posted as we lock things in. And so the community had some things to say about it. So I got a couple of comments here that I kind of want to dive into just to kind of give a bigger, broader perspective, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this. Zenith writes, patch number 1 looks awesome. One suggestion is to make sure that bounties and challenges appropriately scale in XP and improve their rewards. 2 to 300 XP. At level 18 to 20 is nothing. Often the rewards are a couple of whites or blues, and you don't want blues to begin with. And then plague gear is the goal, and then often said rewards involve items that are not even particularly useful to your build. To better reflect the challenge, bounties should give plague gear rewards, or at least the weekly ones should. Another stretch goal would be to introduce a way to upgrade magic, blue, items into plagued, purple, so Eleanor doesn't brick your items when enchanting. Whatever blues that drop are not immediately vendor trash. I do wonder if they've used the reroll, kind of process. I don't know. I'd have to speculate, but interesting feedback. Then he finishes up with allowing players to upgrade blues to purple will also open up the amount of farming fashion choices that they have, and they can now wear a piece that looks better instead of selling it away because it is a blue quality. This in and of itself is like, I get a vibe from this. I don't know if you guys got the same vibe, that in this case that he's looking at it in tiers. Now I continue to find that the better items tend to, right now, at least starting out, is the custom ones, the commons. I think that's going to be an interesting balance thing overall. And yes, I do have a couple of plagued items, and they're great if you get the right rolls for sure. Sometimes they're like you avoid at all costs, but it is what it is. Now, Cytoxin writes, some of these changes are looking really solid, especially the range combat adjustments, which seem very promising. That said, I'm a bit cautious about the difficulty tweaks. In my experience, difficulty settings often make it feel like I'm not playing the intended version of the game. I personally prefer a single, well-tuned difficulty. It usually reflects bold and confident game design. The native utility runes are a great quality of life change, and I think that they will also help with the tutorialization of world navigation, which is much needed. I'm especially hoping for the loot system to get a strong overhaul. Right now, loot feels pretty flat regardless of the build that I'm running. It lacks identity and excitement. I'd love to see deeper rework to stats, gear, combat overall, and more flexibility in builds and more runes to support them. I know that they'll likely evolve over time. I'm very curious to see the job system. Yes, way to call it the job system, dude. You're the best. And we'll shake things up. I hope that we get partial fast travel, then full freedom. I'd rather agree with the original design philosophy that Thomas has talked about in some interviews. However, some fast travel is not out of the question, and it could be quite welcome. Perhaps the player needs to burn an item to fast travel. I do think there should be a cost to fast travel, and it could be, an ember in this regards, continuing to keep those things valuable so you have more things to do with them. But you can let me know what kind of currency you'd like to think of. He says he also thinks combat should be shaken up a bit. I will make a post about it soon. In the meantime, I keep stubbornly writing feedback and design suggestion posts. Hopefully they help contribute in some small way and keep up the good work. Now, in the kind of a negative category, Coyle writes, words cannot describe how horrible of an idea it is to add limitless fast travel, even if it's temporary. The entire world and progression was designed with a lack of fast travel in mind. If you add it now, people won't be getting as many resources, gear, and levels as they would normally if they were to travel on foot. Do not do this. I repeat, do not do it. One more time for the back rows, do not do this. The thought that I had immediately when they said that, I was like, I keep coming back to custom realms. At the end of the day, like if I can build out a really interesting kind of D&D, a custom realm and share it with you guys, and we can all kind of have that shared experience, I think that's going to be interesting. Because the thing that Cytoxin points out is that, having in multiple difficulties, having in these various different options, there's pros and cons. There's definitely going to be trade-offs, and that's for sure. Now, personally speaking, I actually enjoyed the lack of fast travel. It does make the world feel better, but like it really does make it feel like, hey, the size and the scale of it, if I can just jump around immediately, it saves me time. It's convenient. My life definitely thanks you. My tight schedule, my busyness, definitely thanks me. But it is something nice to see. Now, that all being said, I do think that we might see it shift into a cost because there are still things coming, and Thomas is hesitant, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's staying. However, if it goes away, and especially for those who aren't like dramatically following the game, it could add a level of confusion later on. Time will obviously be the biggest judge in that regards, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. what, especially about anything the community has shared here in this video, and we can have those discussions on the streams and in future videos. Now, I know this video is a little bit long, but I do want to end with the message of hope. FGC left me a message. We've been talking in the comments, and one of the things that we always want to try to do here is just kind of, especially I see a lot of suffering out there in the world, and I think the lie of suffering is that you're alone, that you're the only person going through this, and that isn't true. Like, all of us are strugglers, all of us have suffered, all of us will suffer, you know, if we're not currently in that right now. And while that, you know, I don't want that to be like, you know, black pill kind of mindset, I actually look at it more white pilled, is that suffering makes us more human. Suffering makes it easy for you and me to relate to each other. It can actually, you know, bring people together and, you know, kind of unite those bonds. But FGC writes, battling depression is harder than Dark Souls and with my eyes closed. Just in a rut. I'm 34 and have 3 kids, a stay-at-home dad, due to a severe stomach complications that doctors haven't been able to figure out for 10 years now. It always just sucks because being at home and feeling like I can't do anything or achieve my goals. I stay as happy as I can for the family, but it's rough. I thought about doing content creation just so I can feel like I'm doing something instead of just being a sloth on my couch. Anyway, rant over. Love the channel. Been subbed since I was covering Final Fantasy 14. Keep up the positivity because the world needs it. So to give you guys a little bit of my story, because I don't know if you know anything I share now will directly relate to FGC, but it's worth a shot because depression is no small joke. I do encourage anybody, especially depression, you feeling blue, don't play around with that stuff. Like, you know, I use cognitive behavior therapy to work on my anger issues, and that has been very, very helpful in my life. It's just a real great way of therapy to drill into the why. Why am I spiraling? Why am I having these thoughts? Because our brains can lie to us, and I think that's one of the things that I constantly try to reiterate to everybody. But depression is no small feat. I get seasonal depression. This isn't going to be the same as just straight up, but I know how hard it is to get out of bed. I know how easy it is to beat up on ourselves, to hate ourselves. You know, like, I should be doing this, you know, and it's like a lot of that, like, where's the productivity in that, right? The goal is, all right, cut out the noise, focus in on what you can accomplish. And if you want to accomplish bigger things, you got to create a roadmap. If it's struggling to do something, listen, like this is no way, shape or form me complaining. Mother's Day is daggum hard. Like, I try to make sure my wife has the best Mother's Day. Being a mom is hard. Being a stay-at-home dad is hard. Being anybody who cares, a caretaker, is hard. And it's important to put your oxygen mask on first at times, so that way you can be that. Now, the thing that really concerned me about the message here is staying happy for the family. It's good to kind of, like, we all put on fronts, but you're at home with your family. And I know you don't want to bring that in. I know that I watched my dad live and breathe on the couch for over a year after we lost everything. For those who don't know, 16 going on 17, we were well off. And then we lost everything. We were home, almost like we were 5 minutes away from being homeless. And then in the last minute, we found a place to stay. And then eventually we were able to get a trailer home and live in that. And that's what that's where I was for the rest of my high school experience. And so I'm more appreciative of that. Now, as a dad, I don't want to do what my dad did, but there's a lot of value I get out of that. That's just, I guess, how my brain works. It's like, okay, yeah, this is where we're at. Okay, what can we learn from it? How can we get, how can we look at it for the positive? You guys probably haven't, if you haven't caught on, I'm definitely an optimist. The glass is completely full. It's got liquid and air, which is also a liquid, and that's just, a fun physics fact for you. But that all being said, I want to make sure that you content creation is good. Having something that you can do is good, especially like man to man, like working with our hands, like doing something. It can be good. In fact, that's the advice that I always give. Get out of bed, brush your teeth, take a shower, make your bed, do some of these small things, whatever can be the small wins. Now, if you're taking care of kids, those small wins might be undone within 10 minutes, and you kind of have to keep redoing them. And that's why, me just kind of being a mom for a day and giving my wife Mother's Day so she can rest and relax. Like, yeah, I think I cleaned the house all day, and by the time the end of the day happened, like, the house was still not clean. I don't know how she does it. She's a miracle worker in that regards. But it's hard to be a caretaker, and so just note that what you're going through is hard. Also, the medical issues. 10 years, doctors not being able to figure it out. That's my story. Like, I had turns out low testosterone. That was causing, I had 10 years of anxiety, and it was just like, why does it feel like I'm constantly like having, you know, like I kept going to the hospital all the time thinking I was having a heart attack, yada yada yada. It didn't help that I was overweight, but it turns out that was also one of the things keeping me overweight. For men, if your body is overproducing cortisol and not producing testosterone, you know, like testosterone and cortisol, the stress hormone, isn't the same thing. So I was definitely in high stress situations, and that was causing my body to be in this constant state of fight or flight, killing my testosterone, making me gain weight. Whereas, like, I was going to the gym, I was running, half marathons and things like that, and it's like, why do I keep gaining weight? Now that's been reversed because my body's not in constant fight or flight mode. And that's been a huge help. And it took 10 years to find that problem. It took me begging my doctor. And so one of the things that sucks about this life is, like, we like to think that all these things, like, oh, there's an order to all of it. No, there's a lot of chaos. And sometimes you have to be an asshole. Sometimes you have to really fight for it. And you might not ever really get an answer as to the stomach issues that you have. And that sucks. But don't give up the fight. Because I believe wholeheartedly that the answer is out there, and when you find it, there is a sense of relief that comes along with it. You know, like, finally, I knew I wasn't crazy, right? Like, so for me, this has been a very big help, and it's been a journey. And I think in a way, like, again, looking at the optimist side of it, it's like I'm glad for the opportunity to suffer alongside you guys. I'm glad for that as an opportunity. That I can share my story in hopes that for you out there using video games as a coping mechanism for all the crap that's going on in your day-to-day, well, there is hope. And not that video games are completely bad. Like, I love video games, but I think there's also the risk that we all can over abuse video games rather than actually kind of, eating the elephant, tackling the thing we have to do. Now, it can seem overwhelming when you think of, like, oh, I have to lose weight and I got to do all these things and yada, yada, yada. Simplest thing is take it one step at a time, one bite at a time. Break everything that you have to do up into small, accomplishable things that will kick in that dopamine response in your brain and go from there. Now, the one thing I'll end on is if this isn't working, you could have a condition that you're not producing, like your dopamine responses aren't working right for whatever reason. And that could be something medical and or therapeutic. Either way, I want you to fight for yourself because you're worth being around, not just for your kids, but you're worth being around just because you are full of human dignity. And I want you to have the best life absolutely possible. And sometimes that means you got to fight for it. And you got to believe that you can win it too. Because whether you believe you're right or you believe you're wrong, you're right. So believe in yourself, believe that you can, and continue to struggle on just like the rest of us. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your time today. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. I'm really excited to check out patch number 1 and break it all down with you guys and more. All that being said, I wish you guys all the very best. God bless, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. But until then, take care.
Fix or pack mornings, controller in hand. 6 little co-op partners ready to stand. Rosaries hang where the headsets lay. Faith in frames per second lead the way.